All right, guys, we're going to talk about today's lesson. This is, we've done challenge questions. This is a challenge day. So we're going to start with basic trig. When I say basic, I don't mean easy. You still have to know how trig works, but I mean that these are just mostly one step or one triangle situations. But I'm going to move kind of quickly through the video. Obviously, you can rewind, fast forward as you need to. Come in and ask questions if you need to. But here we go. So here we have this triangle. We're trying to find the angle. So just as a quick reminder, to find angles, you have to do what's called inverse trig. So forget this question. This is a brand new situation. But let's say I had like the sine of 20. And I type in the sine of 20, right? I do sine of 20. I get 0.3420. This is the ratio, right? If I have a 20-degree angle, well, I know that opposite divided by hypotenuse has to equal that. That's what we know, opposite divided by hypotenuse. Well, what if I knew that the opposite divided by the hypotenuse was 0.3420? What if I know the ratio? How do I go backwards? And that's where inverse comes in. Inverse undoes the formula, right? I don't know what the sine formula is, but I know when I type in sine 20 in the calculator, right? Sine 20, the calculator knows that that's an angle, because after sine you input angles, right? It's always sine of an angle, and it takes that angle and it tells you what the opposite divided by hypotenuse has to equal for that angle. So if we know the ratio, the opposite divided by hypotenuse, can we tell the calculator, hey, undo that formula and tell me what the angle comes from? So like if I do inverse sine of 0.3420, I get like 19.999. That's because I rounded, but it's basically 20 degrees. It knows that has to come from a 20-degree angle. Okay, all that to say is when you see x on an angle, you're doing inverse trig. So this is adjacent hypotenuse. What part of SOHCAHTOA is adjacent hypotenuse? It's cosine. But I don't have the angle. So I know that the angle equals the inverse cosine of the ratio. So I do inverse cosine of 7 over 21, and I know that the angle is 70.529 degrees. That's the angle. So if you're solving for a missing angle, you're always doing an inverse cosine. If you know the ratio and you want the angle, that is inverse cosine. Okay, I think you got it. I think we all got it. All right, here we have two missing sides. We can solve for both, but we need two separate setups to do it. So 18 is my basis. This is opposite adjacent, so I'm going to start with that. I know that the tangent of 18 equals opposite x over adjacent 11. If x is up high, all you got to do is multiply. So I know it's 11 times the tangent of 18. I type that in, 11 times the tangent of 18, and I get 3.574. That is my x value. Just so you understand why we're multiplying, what we're doing is times 11 times 11. The 11s cancel out. That's why we say when x is up high, all you got to do is multiply. Okay, well, we have that side. Now I want to get y. Should I use this number to solve for y? Should I? The answer is no. Two big reasons. One, it's a rounded number. So if I use a rounded number to get another number, now my answer potentially is even more wrong. We don't want to round more than we have to. You only round when it's your final destination. Let's do a quick sidebar for rounding. Let's say you're doing a similar problem and you solve it, and let's say the instructions say round to the nearest whole number. So let's say you have 8.49, but the problem says round to the nearest whole number. So you round it to 8. Okay. And let's say that's kind of like your x, like some side length. And it says round to the nearest whole number. You round it to 8. You got 8 now. But let's say you have to then do more with it. Maybe you have to get like the area of the triangle. And so maybe you have like a right triangle where this side's 8 and this side's 22. No, let's go, I don't know. Let's do 8. Let's make it even bigger so it's even more obvious. Let's say 8 and 50. Well, if I do 1/2 times 8 times 50, I get 200. But what if I had done 1/2 times 8.49 times 50? I don't even know. Let me type that in. 1/2 times 8.49 times 50. That is 212.25. Look how far away I am. So if the answer was supposed to be 212, because you're supposed to round to the nearest whole number, are you anywhere near that? No. And that's just one example there. Guys, if you round, that is because that's what they're asking for. You only round when you're at the final destination. You do not round before the final destination. And if you have multiple destinations, like if you have to get X and then something else, do you move forward with a rounded number or do you move forward with the exact number? You move forward with the exact number. I can't stress that enough. So hopefully you listen to the last 2 minutes and you understand that you don't round when you're still doing work. All right, so I'm going to get this hypotenuse. I'm going to use the unrounded whole number 11. That is adjacent hypotenuse, and that is the cosine of 18 equals 11 over y. If y is down low, they switch places, you know. So that's 11 over the cosine of 18. And if I plug that in, 11 over the cosine of 18, I get 11.566. And that is my hypotenuse. Why do we switch places? If y is down low, they switch places, you know. Well, that's because we're multiplying y to both sides, canceling out the y. And then this is times cosine 18. So how do I fix times cosine 18? I divide by cosine 18. That's why it ends up there. All right. Challenge question, find the area of the triangle. I would love for you to pause and try to do it on your own. I'm going to work it out. It's 1/2 times base times height. That's how we get area. I don't have a height. How do I know? Heights make rights. You have to have a right angle to have a height. No rights, no heights. So what do you have to do? You got to fight for your heights. You're going to be fighting for these heights. We got to make some heights. We got to find them. All right, there are 3 possible heights for this triangle, and 2 of them are okay. I want to show you all 3 of them real quick. One possible height, maybe you're not thinking of, would be this height. I could draw that height, and then 10 would be my base. And I could solve that situation. Look at this triangle I just made. Don't I have a hypotenuse of 40? I have 62 degrees. Couldn't I do sine of 62 equals opposite over hypotenuse? The answer is yes. That is one potential height. Another potential height is I could drop a height from this corner. This one is not helpful because I just cut up my only angle. My only angle is 62. Is it going to be 31 and 31? No. It's not isosceles. If it was an isosceles triangle, like if this was 40 and 40, if they're both 40, then ding, 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 now you can split it in half. But it's not 40 and 40, it's 40 and 10. So I don't know how to split up this 62. It's not proportional to the sides. I don't know how to split it up. So that height, while it's right, it's not helpful. And then the third option, and this is the one we like the most, is vertical heights. Vertical. So we drop it like it's high, drop it like it's high. This one's okay too. So if we drop this height, make it a little bit thicker, we can do this right triangle, and that's the one I'm going to work on. So, guys, if you have multiple triangles and you're struggling, it is pretty helpful for a lot of people to draw them separately and work on them separately. What we have is a hypotenuse of 10, an angle of 62, and I'm going to call the height h. Look, hypotenuse of 10, an angle of 62, and I'm going to call this h for height. I can solve that. That is the sine of 62 equals opposite over hypotenuse. If h is up high, all I got to do is multiply, and that's my height. I'm not going to round that. That's not the final destination. The final destination is area. Do not pick up a calculator and type that in. Let's just go straight to the area. So to finish the problem, area equals 1/2. Well, if this is my height, then 40 is my base. So 1/2 times base times height. Well, it's the 10 sine 62. Leave it like that. If I didn't have a calculator, I would want you to clean this up. What is half of 40? It's 20. What's 20 times 10? This is 200 sine 62. But I want you to go ahead and practice rounding. Type it in, 200 sine 62. and the area is 176. Ooh, this is a good one. It rounds. Please practice typing this in. I will not help you figure out how to type something in on a test or quiz. If you don't practice now, you don't know if you know how to type it in, but it rounds to this. Let's look at where it comes from. It comes from 176.5895. Let's look. What does this 5 do to the 9? It bumps it up to 10, basically. Well, you can't write 10 there, so that 1 gets tacked on over here, and that's why it ends up going to 90. You can even think of it as 89 is being bumped up to 90, in a sense. 89 is being bumped up to 90. All right, but that's the answer. Next challenge. Again, I want you to pause and try on your own or watch a little bit and see how to get started. But I'm going to do the whole thing, but I'm hoping you're trying to do as much as you can on your own. Once again, there's no right angles, so we got to fight for our heights. This is a good height. It's not the only height. There's 2 correct heights you could have drawn here. We could have also gone from this side, and our hypotenuse would have been the 1,000. We could have done that as well. The issue with that is we're cutting up the angle we're trying to get, so not recommended. I wouldn't do it. This is honestly by far the best one on this triangle. So that's my height. I'm going to call it X, and my end goal is to get over here. That is a missing angle. So my end goal, let me draw a triangle over here, is this black triangle. So knowing what I have to find is a big deal. I need to work on this black triangle with theta. How many sides do you need to get an angle? Well, to do inverse trig, you need 2 sides. So let's keep that in mind. I don't know any sides over there. So I'm going to work on this triangle. This is a triangle where I have a hypotenuse. So let's work over here. And I need to solve for x. And I need the bottom there. So let me redraw this situation. We have 46. We have 400. I need these 2 parts. I need them both. And I'll tell you why in a second, but I do need both. So let's work these out. So for x, this is opposite hypotenuse. So the sine of 46 equals opposite over hypotenuse. So x equals 400 times the sine of 46. So up here, this is 400 times the sine of 46. Then my y value, let's look at the y value. That is adjacent hypotenuse to the 46. So the cosine of 46 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So y equals 400 times the cosine of 46. So that is this part, 400 cosine 46. Now let's look real hard. Forget that number, please. Forget it for a second. Let's pretend it's like 200. If that was 200 and we know the whole thing is 1,000, wouldn't this be 800? Right? 1,000 minus 200? But it's not. It's not 200. It's this number, which we're not going to round. So this side would be 1,000 minus 400 cosine 46. That's how long it is. So now on this black triangle, we have 400 sine 46 and 1,000 minus 400 cosine 46. Now we can do trig to get theta. We now have all the pieces that we need. So I'm going to go over here. Theta, this is opposite adjacent. It's going to be inverse tangent. I want the angle. I have to do inverse tangent on the ratio of opposite divided by hypotenuse. That's my theta. I got to type that in. Inverse tangent of opposite, I have to hit the fraction key first, 400 sine 46 over 1,000 minus 400 cosine 46. And just so you can kind of see it, this is what it looks like. I will not help you type this in on the test on the quiz. You have to know how to do this. Practice it. So that angle, if I round to the nearest thousandths, is 21.725. Okay, that's the whole problem. You can rewind if you have questions. Boom. All right, another one. My favorite height is this one. It's a no-go. I don't know how to split up the 33, so I'm not going to do it. I have two choices. I could go this way and have 16 as my hypotenuse and an angle of 33, or I could go this way and that gives me 20 as the hypotenuse. It doesn't matter. You can do either one. They're both okay. I'm going to do this one. And so in this situation, we have a hypotenuse of 20, an angle of 33, and this side would be my h for height. So this is opposite hypotenuse from my 33. So this is the sine of 33 equals opposite h over hypotenuse 20. So h equals 20 times the sine of 33. And that's like my h here. What's the base? Well, if that's my height, this is my base. Remember, bases and heights have to make a right. My base and my height have to form a right angle. So the area would be 1/2 times the base, 16, times the height, 20, sine 33. I can clean that up. That would be 160 times the sine of 33. And that's the answer if I don't have a calculator. But if I have a calculator and I'm asked to round, I type that in, 160 times the sine of 33. And I get 87.142. Practice typing it in. Practice rounding, please. So that's a lot like the one we did a couple of problems ago. Based on the two area questions, what's an alternate formula, or not alternate, I didn't give you a formula. What's another way to, I guess I did, based on type, to get this area? Let's go look. I want you eyes wide open. Take a look. Eyes wide right now. 40, 10, 62. 40, 10, 62. 16, 20, 33. 16, 20, 33. Take a guess, take a guess, take a guess. Are you guessing? 10, 12, 20. Take a guess before I write it. 31, 20, 40. These are the right answers. This is it. And take a guess. Take a guess. 14, 6, 70. I don't see a 70. I know. Calm down. Take a breath. This is 70. 65 plus 45 is 110. That's 70. So, guys, formulas are really just patterns. The pattern is you must have two sides and the included angle. Two sides and the included angle. And when you have that, if we call these sides A and B, and this angle C, the area is going to be 1/2 AB times the sine of angle C. If you can remember that, if you can remember the pattern, you can do these a lot quicker, and this is on the quiz. Otherwise, do you know how to brute force it? We just brute forced it 2 times. You don't need a formula. And just a little bit on formulas, guys. Memorizing formulas doesn't mean you know math. If you just memorize formulas, it doesn't mean you know anything. If all you ever do is memorize formulas, then you don't know anything. Formulas get you answers, sure. But if you don't understand how things work and how to derive that formula, then that formula is very limited in its use. It's very specific. This is a very specific situation. It must be side angle side, and that's it. That's it. That's when you use it. So if you don't know how to adjust based on, like if you don't understand what it's derived from, you can't manipulate it and get better from it. So please don't just memorize formulas. Like when I help people with pre-cal and stuff, I don't go in there having all the formulas memorized. But I know the math and understand the math so I can refigure out how things work. The difference between making a 4 and a 5 on an AP science test or math test is people who make 4s, they can calculate and get answers. People who make 5s, they can explain how they work. That's the difference right there. If you want to be the best, you need to understand how things work, not just how to do things. Those are totally different. One of them is way better than the other. All right, let's do another one. So, pause it, try it, but I'm going to work it out. If I know 2 angles, of course I'm getting the third angle right away. And the best height here, once again, is vertical. Vertical, vertical. So I got to drop that height. You got to keep fighting for those heights, guys. You got to fight for your heights to solve. So I'm working on a triangle. It has a 60, a 90, a 30-foot side. But this would be a 30-degree angle. 30, 60, 90 rules. I don't need sine, cosine, or tangent. This would be 15 and 15 root 3. I will tell you right now, here's your warning shot. If you ever do any of these things, if I see this work anywhere, I'm taking off a lot of points. And it could be cosine or tangent, whatever. But if you are doing it for these 3 numbers, I'm taking off a lot of points. If it's worth 10 points, I'm taking off 15. There's too many times you have to know this. Pre-calculus, calculus, science classes, ACTs, SATs, they all assume you can do this without a calculator. And so I need you to leave my class doing this without a calculator, even if you have one in your hand. Even though this is technically correct, I will count it wrong. I'm going to be pretty mean about it. There's your warning. All right, so on this picture, I know this is 15. I know that this is 15 root 3. Now I can shift my focus over here. So I have this black triangle with a 40-degree angle, and it's 15 root 3. I have this side as X. I'm going to call this C. I don't know, you can call it whatever you want, but it's not labeled in the picture. And this would be, I need both of them. So this would be opposite hypotenuse for X. So that would be the sine of 40 equals opposite over hypotenuse. So X equals 15 root 3 over the sine of 40. Type that in. Practice typing this in. This would be a tough one for a lot of people. 15 root 3 divided by the sine of 40, and I get 40.419. Nice. Woo! And then what's the other situation? I got to get C. Let's change our... Let's look at C. That'd be opposite adjacent for C. So the tangent of 40 would equal opposite 15 root 3 over adjacent. I called it C. So C would equal 15 root 3 over tan 40. If C is down low, they switch places, you know. So that's this number, and this is 15. So if Y is the whole thing, I need to do this plus this. So Y equals 15 plus all of this. Practice typing it in. So it would be 15 plus 15 root 3 over the tangent of 40. Oh, no, I messed up. Okay, sorry. 15 plus fraction, 15 root 3 over tangent 40. And I get 45.963. Practice typing it in. There's that whole problem. Now I have X and Y. All right, challenge questions. We got to get through these. 2 word problems. We're going to do them both. Here we go. Let me. Whoop. Sorry, Natish. Just because it's going on YouTube. I don't know. There we go. Okay. So real quick, angle of elevation and depression. Horizontal line, angles above the horizontal line, elevation. Angles below the horizontal line, depression. So above the horizontal, elevation, below, depression. What if I'm sitting here, this dot's me, and I have 2 friends, and I want to look at this friend. Is that angle of depression more or less than looking at this friend? Let's think about it. Horizontal line. As I turn, if I turn a little bit, I can see this guy, right? Don't I have to turn even more to see the closer person? Listen, the more you turn, the closer you get to yourself. And if you turn 90 degrees, you're looking straight down. They're right next to you. So like the far person, their angle of depression is actually a smaller number because you have to turn your head a little bit less. I know that's confusing. You might have to come in for a more visual explanation. All right, it says Natish is 40 yards from his favorite toy store. From the ground, the angle of elevation to the top of the store is 38 degrees. The angle of elevation to the top of a sign on the roof is 48 degrees. So we got a situation, something like this. Do you see the picture? There's a sign on top of a building. I'm talking about this picture on the right. And oh dear, I don't know what is happening. If you are looking just to the top of the building, that's going to be a smaller angle of elevation. So the sign is on top of the building. So the building, we got to break this into 2 parts. So first situation, I have a point on the ground and I'm looking at the top of the building. That is situation number 1. There we go. I am 40 yards away. Angle of elevation is 38 degrees to the top of the building. Can I get the height of the building right now? The answer is yes. This would be opposite over adjacent. So the tangent of 38 equals opposite over adjacent. If x is up high, all you got to do is multiply. So that's 40 times tangent 38. That is the height of the building. But the sign is on top of the building. So I'm looking at the sign. I have to turn my head up a little bit more. That is 48 degrees. Now what I need you to know is this little bit is 10. Not helpful. Don't use 10. 10 is not the angle of elevation. The angle of elevation is the whole thing, 48. It can be helpful to redraw. What if I was just talking about to the top of the sign? Wouldn't you have a situation that's really close to the first one where you're 40 yards away, but the angle of elevation is 48 degrees, and I'll call that y? That's what we're working on. This distance from the bottom all the way to the top, we'll call it y. That would be tangent 48 equals y over 40. The only difference, y equals 40 times, oh gosh, my handwriting. Y equals 40 times the tangent of 48. The only thing that changed was the angle. They're pretty much the exact same answer, just the angle's a little different. So this would get me from the ground to the top of the sign. So let's look. How do I get just the sign? I would have to do y minus x. Yep. So I don't want to rewrite it all again, but I'm going to do y minus x. That is 40 tangent 48 minus 40 tangent 38. That is y minus x. The sine is 13.173. There we go. That's a level 4 hard question. Anytime there's more than one triangle, that is a level 4. That's a level 4. Okay, let's do one more together. Alex is a free solo climber. What does that mean? That means my friend Alex, he's on this mountain with 0 equipment by himself, just climbing. Crazy, crazy. While free soloing half dome, and this is not actually half dome, I think this is El Capitan, but the problem says half dome. He spots two friends on a path on the ground. On the ground. So listen, two friends on the ground, they're going to be horizontal. I know that the ground is not always horizontal, but we don't have methods for that right now. We're doing more basic problems. If you see ground or water or anything like that, those are going to be horizontal for this class. So here we go. We have Alex in the air. And try to do this before I do it. Pause it and try to draw it out. But we have Alex, and he has two friends on the ground. And he's looking at the two friends. And you have a couple of options here. And I'm going to only do it one way, but just know this is not the only way to do it. So you could do angles of depression. After all, they gave us angles of depression. Angles of depression go out and down, out and down. You could do that. But I think it looks a little worse. It's a little harder to understand. But let's think for a second. If these are my two friends, right? Like if that's, if this is me and this is a friend, my angle of depression to look at my friend, look at this number, that's my depression. My depression is the exact same number as his elevation. Why? Horizontal lines, those are alternate interior angles. So could I draw a triangle that uses his elevation? Yes, and that's what I'm going to do. So instead of basing it off of Alex's depression, I'm going to base it off of his friend's elevation. And I think it makes the problem look a little bit easier. It makes it a little bit easier to understand. So this first triangle, I messed a little bit, that's okay. The closer person is the bigger number. So he's 50 degrees at 4,000. So can I get, I'm going to call it x, that horizontal distance? Yes. The tangent of 50 would equal opposite over adjacent. So that is 4,000 over the tangent of 50. That is how far horizontally friend 1 is. Friend 2 is farther out. And that triangle, I'm going to draw, his angle of depression to him was 40 degrees. So his angle of elevation would be 40 degrees. And it helps to draw it separately. So basically what we have here is a 40 degree angle of elevation. We're still 4,000 feet in the air. I'm going to call that y. So this would be the same, almost the same as what we just did, but it's 50 degrees. The tangent of 50 degrees. It's 40 degrees. The tangent of 40 degrees equals opposite over adjacent. If y is down low, they switch places, And there you go. So what is that? What is y? Y is all of this. So how do I get the distance between the two friends on the ground? Well, very much like last time, it's going to be y minus x. So my calculator, 4,000 over tan 40 minus 4,000 over tan 50, and I get 1410.616. Now, I will say, common mistake is you put the wrong angles in the wrong places. You think 40 is the closer one. That's a really common issue. If you do that, not a giant deal. What would happen if you did small minus big instead of big minus small? Well, you'd get the exact same answer, but negative. Well, it can't be negative. So then I just got it backwards. So I can't help you on the quiz, but people always ask, what's going on? It's negative. I can't help you. And then I see you erase all your work, and I'm like, all you did was you flipped the order. You accidentally did small minus big when you have to do big minus small. But guys, there's today's lesson. If you missed it or if you just needed to see it again, hopefully this was helpful. These are very tough questions. I look forward to seeing how we do on this quiz. See ya.